So Colombia quickly caved into pressure from the White House after tariff threats from President Trump, saying we'll start accepting deportation flights from the U.S.
Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy joins us right now. Peter, people watch this play out in real time. The president put something out on X and Truth Social. Next thing you know, the president of Colombia said, OK, I was just kidding.
And we'd been tracking possible tariffs as early as next week on Mexico and on Canada. We hadn't heard anything about tariffs on Colombia until the Colombian government turned back 2 U.S. military planes full of Colombian nationals who had entered this country illegally. They were being deported. When President Trump caught wind of this, he threatened a 25% tariff that would go up to 50% after a week on imports from Colombia. And that was just too much for the Colombians. The foreign ministry in Bogota now telling us Colombia, under the direction of President Gustavo Petro, has the presidential plane ready to facilitate the return of compatriots who were to arrive in the country today in the morning on deportation flights. And so within an hour or so, the White House put their threat on hold. Caroline Leavitt, the new press secretary, says the fully drafted IEEPA tariffs and sanctions will be held in reserve and not signed unless Colombia fails to honor this agreement. The visa sanctions issued by the State Department and enhanced inspections from customs will remain in effect until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. And this could have been a pretty impactful trade war because the number one import from Colombia to the United States is coffee. But the number 3 Colombian export to the U.S., something that people would probably notice ahead of Valentine's Day, cut flowers. Back to you.
And Peter, to the point about, we're in a fight with Colombia, there goes the price of coffee. When people heard Donald Trump say, there's going to be a tariff against Mexico, people were saying in the mainstream media and on social media, talking about how, are you kidding? The price of avocados is going to go up just at the Super Bowl. That's when we buy all the avocados.
Yes, and if you buy some avocados now, chances are they will still be ripe for the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. But it's something that we have not seen from President Trump, where he was talking about tariffs basically as economic policy, as a way to get the United States more competitive with the rest of the world that he thinks is ripping the United States off. This would be a retaliatory tariff that I can pretty much guarantee the Trump people yesterday were not even tracking these tariffs on Colombia. It's something that he heard about and is trying to use the power that he has as president to essentially get people to take these deportees back.
Right. He's 5 steps ahead of everybody, from the flights out to the countries that are getting them. Thanks, Peter. The other thing is about avocados. You can just cut out the bruised part, number one. Number two, the nation should go hummus. As a country, we have to make that decision.
We can do both. We can do both.
You can do both?
Guacamole. Wait, on Super Bowl, you're going to have hummus?
Right, because it's
What's the matter with you?
It doesn't break the chip. Like you have chips with that much of a spine, they break, and then you just stare at the broken chip in the hummus.
That's a lot of chickpeas.
You can get avocados here in America. They grow them in California as well.
Oh, California.
Yeah. They're still Americans.
No, I know, but I'm saying they're having problems.
They are having
better
problems.
than buying them from a country that doesn't support us.
Good point, but now they support us.
Most of them do come from Mexico.
Well, it only took them a few hours. My favorite part about this is that the liberals in the mainstream media were freaking out on social media. It's like, what is he doing? Right. This is not working. And within an hour, they completely caved. The president released this dossier blaming America, saying that we're a racist country, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, minutes later, he recanted. And what the president is putting in place, which people may not know, he's saying that when the trucks come across, whether it is by ship or truck, that he's going to slow down CBP when it comes to it. And they're going to inspect all of their places until they take the,
All right,
the
several
migrants
things.
back.
So Colombia, it's a socialist South American country, right?
Yeah.
Then Colombia, as soon as Donald Trump does this, Colombia caves. So Donald Trump wins. The Colombia government, they finally accepted those flights. The president of Colombia is now saying, you know what, I don't want them to be transported on your military planes. It's inhumane. So I'm going to send the presidential plane to pick them up. But he did comply, and the Colombia foreign minister is traveling to D.C. today for meetings about this agreement, and Marco Rubio's involved.
Well, you know, I read in some news source this morning that apparently this all happened while Donald Trump was playing golf. And so essentially he heard about it, he picked up his phone, and he fixed it. It goes to show you how, you know, and we've told you.
Businessman as opposed to a politician?
This is how you negotiate. And you know what? All right, they're going to do that.
Aren't most deals done on the golf course anyway?
This is true.
I think.
But usually the people are in the foursome.
Yeah,
Not usually
generally.
Like Burisma?
It's like charisma. Absolutely.
But here's ultimately, would you pay an extra quarter on a cup of coffee to send those people back?
Yes.
You know, he's thinking yes, but he didn't have to, because ultimately they caved. Because in addition to...
I already have a payment plan for my Starbucks.
What you do is you go to
that's
the
how
grocery
expensive it
store,
is.
you look at the coffee, you buy the one that's the cheapest. And if he slaps tariffs on Colombia, we're going to stop buying their coffee.
As a country, you just go taster's choice. It's instant. You put it in, you stir it.
It's...
Right? It's a little different.
I'm just saying.
And the guy, we've got half a
My
face
mom
on the
loved
guy
that
just
one.
smelling it.
My mom
right?
loved that one. I would
Right.
make it for her.
Yeah?
You have to
What was
stir it
it?
a little
My mom
bit
liked
more.
it too. Yeah.
Right?
I didn't even know you could brew coffee as a child.
Wasn't Juan
Microwave
Valdez...
with a few scoops.
Right? No, you just heat the water and you pour it in. I didn't
Juan Valdez was the iconic pitchman for Colombian coffee for decades. And we actually had him. Do you remember when he was on this show?
Right.
Like 20
Is that
years
like
ago.
there's a bunch of Colonel Sanders, there's a bunch of Juan Valdez?
No, there was one Colonel Sanders.
Right.
He actually came up
But
with
then they had people pretending to be one.
Well, those were
There's
people
one
who
Ronald
depicted
McDonald,
it.
too.
Right.
Do you ever have your birthday parties at McDonald's?
Nope.
All Chuck E. Cheese.
No, too much meat. All right, so let's talk about what else is happening with illegal immigrants. It started in New York, Chicago, there's Aurora, and Chicago's where Tom Homan was yesterday. And Tom Homan was scooping up a lot of illegal aliens who were criminals. He said, you might be a sanctuary city, but it's not going to stop us. So he put his guys out in force, and they picked up an enormous amount. As of Sunday morning, 956 arrests, 554 detainers. And that was Tom Homan in the basement of a parking garage saying, how are we doing? Want to make sure everybody's working together. Governor Pritzker thinks he's on the right side of things. He's sticking up for the illegal immigrants.
He's a Democrat.
Yeah, he's a Democratic governor of Illinois and eventually wants to run for president. Let's listen.
They're going after people who are law-abiding, who are holding down jobs, who have families here, who may have been here for a decade or 2 decades. We're going to stand in the way of an unconstitutional order. We'll also stand in the way of them breaking the law in Illinois if they're not following federal law. Now, we know that if they show up with warrants to take people away, that we're going to hand them over. We're going to do, what we need to do. But we also have a law in the books in Illinois that says that our local law enforcement will stand up for those law-abiding, undocumented people in our state.
I mean, what do you expect them to show up with? You think ICE is just going to people's residence without a detainer request or a final deportation order that's been signed by a judge? They know the federal law. You got to be able to house these people as well before you do the deportation. So the whole notion that ICE is just showing up to places without due cause legally
But they are
is
going to have
insulting.
collateral arrests.
Right.
You have collateral arrests. When you show up, you go for somebody, and the person next to him is also wanted.
Here
You come with them
illegally.
too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's fear mongering. They're trying to scare everyone that's doing that might have holding down a good
100%.
job. But Tom Homan said it's a priority basis. Right now, the concentration is on public safety threats and national security threats.
Well, and it wasn't just ICE who showed up over the weekend in Chicago. It was also DEA was working in concert with them. It was ATF. It was the U.S. Marshals. And the most surprising thing I saw yesterday was Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil was actually
With Tom Homan.
Is he
was
illegally?
He is. He was actually streaming the whole thing, and Tom Homan, made it very clear to Dr. Phil and also to ABC. Look, the people we're going after, not anybody other than, at this point, people who are in the country illegally and have broken the rules to a profound effect and were convicted or deported, and those are the first to go. Watch.
How many MS-13 members are the age of 14 to 17? Many of them. So, look, if it's a national security threat, public safety threat, and what you need to understand is a case by case. Name another agency, another law enforcement agency that has those type of requirements that they can't walk into a school or a doctor's office or on a medical campus. No other agencies held to those standards. These are well-trained officers with a lot of discretion, and when it comes to sensitive location, there's still going to be supervisory review. So it's not like it's an open issue, but ICE officers should have discretion to decide if a national security threat or a public safety threat's in one of these facilities, then there should be an option for them to make the arrest.
I mean, obviously, they're doing it the smart right now, going after the criminals, but eventually, guys, they are going to make their way to the people that have been here for a while.
Right.
It has been adjudicated. They've had a final deportation order. If they had asylum claims, it has been adjudicated, and a judge has decided, no, you don't have a proper claim. And that's just the law of the land.
So that's not his problem. Is not. It's not up to him to do immigration reform.
No.
There are things that have to be reformed about the immigration system. It takes way too long for legitimate people to work their way through the process. And I think you could put an argument is it's also too costly for people that want to come here that we want here. I don't care from Norway or Ghana. The line is too long. It takes too long. And maybe there's ways to expedite that process. At the same time, if you have farm workers that are here illegally for 20 years, maybe there's a situation where they convert to work visas, where they don't become citizens, can't reward the behaviors, but if they are working and they can't get other people to get those jobs, but that's a couple of years down the line. There's over 1 million people here who have committed some type of crime. And it's going to take a while just to get them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing. Also, Tom Homan made it clear, I'm running out of money. Congress has to give him money. All these operations are expensive.
Right. Two things. One, Ainsley and I talked during that soundbite. Dr. Phil is in the country legally. Just make sure you understood.
That was a joke, right?
Right, exactly. Legal. The other thing is you see the story being played out in a lot of the mainstream media, and essentially what they're trying to do is you mentioned fear-mongering. What they're trying to say is, okay, it's just a matter of time before they come and get the guy who mows my lawn, who has not broken the rules other than in the country illegally. Or it's the person who cuts my hair. Or it's the person who serves the food at my kid's school. It's just a matter of time until they come for them. That is what they're trying to say. But Tom Homan has been very honest all along. The first people we're going after are the ones who are the big troublemakers.
What about the ones we don't know where they are? Yeah. What about the people that were on the terror watch list that were let in? Hundreds of people. Yeah. We don't know where they are. What about all these missing children that have come through?
And there was a report talking about that the administration has already started to find some of those children as well. The last thing I would say about this, about the people that are doing all these other jobs, they continue to say that Americans don't want these jobs. That is not true. We don't want to be paid slave labor for a job working in the field. We don't want to be paid slave labor for working in a construction site making $6 an hour. Maybe if you take the people away that are doing it for slave labor and you have to raise the wages, then we'll be doing those jobs now. But right now, we can't compete against $6 an hour. It's just not fair.
Right. The construction, though, they are really light in construction. They are really light with farmers. But we'll have to see the reconfigure things. The main thing is seal the border, arrest the criminals before you could even think about doing with any type of immigration reform. But if you get to the point where the criminals are gone and you seal the border, then we got to realize what we need in our country is people, because we are a decreasing population, but we're doing better than most Western countries. But I think that there's a conversation to be had 2 years from now after both those things are done. And right now, people are already getting the message to stay away. On January 22nd, there was only 714 people who tried to cross the border illegally. 714.
What were they thinking? I mean, Donald Trump made it very clear. We're not going to let you in.
I know, but that used to be tens of thousands.
Of course, but still, 700 is a big number. Mm-hmm. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.